You can't hear that banging, can you?
I can, yeah.
You can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell.
It's fine.
I'll
It's
try
just
and keep getting
it's just a judge in another room. Order.
I am all ears. A ghost fancast.
Hello and welcome to the I Am All Ears Court of Law with me, Judge Alva.
All rise.
All rise. Today I'm joined with Alana and Katie. Welcome to my jurors.
Yeah.
Hello.
Is that the word, jurors, jury?
We're co-sitting judges on this.
Right.
We already know who's guilty.
Yeah. So today's a bit of a heavy one. We're going to be covering the lawsuit. Now, don't be scared. You may be thinking, Alva, this has been and gone. Why are we doing this? Why are we bringing this back up again? Well, we figured since we've been covering the albums in detail, when it comes to Prequelle, which is the next album that we're going to cover, we felt that what happened in the lawsuit shaped the album so much that a little bit more context was needed. We needed a little bit of an insight into Tobias's mind at the time. Although, interestingly, and there's been a bit of a debate about this since I've been going back and transcribing a bunch of old interviews, a lot of the songs were written prior to the lawsuit, which makes me think, were tensions already building and he was already sort of writing these things down. It's like, I didn't plan on firing you, but you're a dick.
Are you on the square? Are you on the level? Yes.
But the lawsuit is something that fans, rightfully so, are kind of scared to touch. There's a lot to go through, and for the average person, it's very overwhelming. I got overwhelmed when I was going through it all, but we're here. We've gone through a lot. It's took weeks, months, even on and off. I'll give us that, but it's took us time. We've gone through everything to a T. I do need to point out that we're not lawyers.
No.
In reality, let's be real, we don't know shit. We weren't there. We're just going on from an outsider's dummy's perspective. So a lot of this has to be taken with a little pinch of salt. But no, we've gone through most of this with a fine-tooth comb. I will say most of this is sourced from Reddit, from back when all this was actually happening.
Yeah.
Someone took the time to transcribe a bunch of the I think it was the Linköping News articles. There was a reporter there who was sort of live transcribing, and then someone sort of translated it and put it on Reddit. However, I will say, apparently this guy wasn't Tobe's biggest fan, so I think there's still the possibility of things being tweaked and twisted a little bit. So take that with a pinch of salt. But yeah, we've gone through a lot. With as much as we can. I've asked people who know a little bit about law, about certain things, just to get a bit of clarification. But obviously, at the end of the day, this is all our perspective, how we've interpreted it. I think we come to a pretty general consensus that we agreed on. So I think, it is what is presented is what it is. Another massive disclaimer I have to say is this is not for content clout. We do not make any money on this podcast. So this is simply for educational purposes. Like I said, we want to create something that people can listen to. By the way, at the time we're recording this right now, I do not know how long this is going to be. We might have to split this up into an episode because there's a lot to cover. So yeah, this may be a multi-part series, or it might just be a big 2-hour episode. Don't know yet. That's future Alva's problem.
Yeah, because it could be long because this lawsuit didn't just happen out of nowhere. This there was 6 years prior to built to that, so there's going to be a lot to kind of go over.
Exactly.
And also another disclaimer is this is a ghost podcast, so we are going to be a bit biased.
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, Tobias.
Oh, it's hoping no one noticed. I'm seeing how many times I can get that in without casually. But yeah, if people are like, oh, but if you like Tobias and you love him, why don't you just drop this? Why aren't you why are you bringing this up constantly? Which was a really terrible time for him. Because, and I keep saying this, there's so much misinformation around this lawsuit where someone thinks one thing and then they tell a new fan one thing and then they tell another person one thing but slightly differently and so on and so on. And then there's just so many things when I was going through this when I was like, hang on, that's not what I read on Twitter. That's not that how I heard it. So the more you go through the actual court transcripts and the facts, you realize how this is all blown out of not blown out of proportion because it was such a big deal anyway. Like, it is a big thing, but like you start to feel sorry for certain people less.
It's also fan interpretation as well, and rose tinted glasses as well that kind of shaped how people saw some people in those courts, things like that. In the it's hard to kind of explain without spoiling it. but
Yeah.
but yeah, like it is a serious court case, because if I feel like I'm not wrong in saying, like, if he'd lost, he might not have been able to keep going with the Ghost name, because they would have also owned it, and I doubt they would have let him release albums under Ghost. But at the same time, we're on the other side of it. Clearly he did okay. The beginning of this year we had the movie come out, middle of this year, sorry,
Got a viral TikTok song.
viral TikTok song. Like, you can have fun with this. I feel like we're like 7 years, like I've read an old YouTube comment from 7 years ago when the lawsuit was happening, and the guy was like, Ghost is done, Magna Carta cartel is going to come back, and Priest is going to do well, and it's like
7 years on.
Yeah,
What's still gone on?
yeah.
Yeah, that was my next point anyway. And yeah, like you say, enough time has passed now. I think everyone's pretty much better off. I think even the ghouls, to a certain extent, are somewhat happier, because like it was for a lot of people in there, it wasn't even their type of music. We do want to be respectful, but you know us, we inform with banter jokes just to take the sting off. We're not poking fun. It's just a light-hearted way to get a bit of a heavy topic out. No shade intended to anyone, although I can't guarantee.
Well, there might be shade for some. I like Alva can say there's no shade. I'm saying there's going to be shade for me. I can't help it.
I'm not saying I'm going to be perfect, but
Yeah.
hey ho. Right, disclaimers out the way.
Yep.
Should we dive in?
Let's do
Snorkels
it.
on, people. Law hats on. Little wigs.
Right. I'm going to start off with a quote from Tobias. I'm going to get into what he had to say about this from his mouth later on in the program. But I feel like this quote, when I read it the other day, it was just so like, it put everything into a perspective that I think if you go in having read this, it sort of not sways you, but it kind of solidifies a lot of things. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, he said, I'm the first to admit that maybe I didn't do everything right. Looking back, it wasn't smart to involve for certain people in Ghost for a long time. At least not without making it clear to them at the time, again and again, that there was going to be an end to it. By involving them in the band for a long time and paying them a fixed salary, I wanted to give them security. For me, it was a win-win situation. On one hand, they had the security of an income. On the other hand, I had the freedom to do what I wanted with Ghost, like which shows we would and wouldn't play. Because if you pay musicians per show, some will whine and will want to do more shows. While that is not in the interest of the band, I wanted to prevent that. Ghost is my project. I wanted to choose, in the interest of the band, what we would and wouldn't do. That's why I paid everyone a fixed amount so that they had some sort of income when we didn't play. It turns out that if you pay people for doing nothing, they will ask for more money when they have to do something. In retrospect, that makes perfect sense. When I look back and I see how it all developed, but at the moment you are so in the middle of it that you don't realise it, and I've learnt from it. Tobes often said about how he didn't really want to work with certain people, it was just that they're nearby in proximity, and I suppose it's a bit like when you're at school and you have to be put in a project group with a bunch of people you don't really like. Yeah. But like, well, this guy's really good at science and he's going to help us get like an A in this. But if I was to go home and take it to my brother, who's like a neuroscientist, he'd probably be better and do like help me out more. But obviously, right here, right now, these are the people around me, and I'm gonna have to work with it. I think it's like
It's also as well that like I feel like he felt at the beginning with Ghosts when it was starting. It felt like there was a very short time space. Like he felt like he couldn't take ages to figure out if he wanted to do it or not, because like if you at that point in his life, like he just had 2 kids, he's got a job he doesn't like. He's at that point as well, he'd already given up on the idea of being in a band, and then this kind of new thing comes up of like, this could work, but he doesn't have the time or money to kind of do auditions for people to come in. So he's like, I know a bunch of idiots who play music and stuff, like in a loving way at the time, obviously, or maybe not, depending on who he's talking about. But like, I know a bunch of people who can do these things. Hopefully I can ask them and they'll, cut some slack for me. to do it. So I think it feels like it was like a bit of in his head there was like a time crunch where he had to do it at a certain kind of space of time, you know, because you don't really hear like one thing, like I know kind of off topic a little second, but like one of the things I always thought really great about Ghost is the fact that he got successful like in his late 20s, early 30s, because usually you see a lot of bands become successful when they're like 19, 20. You know, yeah. So like the fact that he's a bit older kind of put in his mind probably like a time window on how much time he might have to get this out into the world and maybe be successful. You have like, you know, proximity. You know,
Exactly.
there's that great little moment in the in that podcast he did with the guy from Avenged Sevenfold. You know, he said he you know, he picked them for their proximity and not their professionality or whatever. And you're like, he's
Yeah, exactly.
still a bit bitter about it, but like,
Yeah, because didn't like obviously when Opus was kind of recorded, it was just him, Gura, and then I think Simon came in, who I'll get onto who these people are in a second if you're not familiar. Wasn't it just like they sort of worked on it together, and then suddenly Rise Above were like, "Hey, yeah, we want this. Like, you know, can you start performing live now? And can you be a band?" And then Todd's like, "I don't have a band. Quick."
yeah, it kind of was like, they did the demos, which then went on MySpace. I think they did demos, kind of rough demos, which were just Tobias and Gura. Like, we'll obviously get more into it when we're breaking it all down, but which was just kind of Gura and Tobias. And then they did better demos, which then they went to Simon's studio.
Yes.
Then they put them demos up. They kind of replaced the demos that were on MySpace and put the new ones up, I think. But I know that there was demos that were done before going to Simon's studio, and then there was demos done at Simon's studio, and then Rise Above was like, "Hello."
Yeah, don't forget that a lot of the first Ghost photo shoots before like they'd ever performed, a lot of the ghouls weren't even in the band. It was just people like friends or like, and then there was that one in the UK
Well.
where it was just people from like Metal Hammer and like Kerrang and stuff just dressed up. Like there was literally no band at the time, which is insane.
I think it's the Decibel. Well, the shoot that's used in Decibel, but Metal Hammer had it too. The guy said that like, I think it was after the fact. He said that it was him. A couple of the guys in the church that they shot him were used, which they were thrilled about, and some people from the label, and then Tobias. Like that was the only people there. That was like Tobias was the only actual band member that was there to get the photos done, and everyone else was label or people that were there. Like, do you want to stand and get photo taken? You know, okay, sure.
Speaking of who's who, I'm going to start off with a few things of how things work. So, starting off, because this is quite important actually. This is how trials are run in Sweden. It's fairly similar to the rest of the world, but obviously, like each country has their own different laws on certain things. Now, in Sweden, there is usually for something like this. I'm not talking about like a big murder scale where there's like billion judges and a whole jury. Literally, for a small economic disagreement, there is usually just one judge, no jury. Which that's. But imagine, and this is just as far as I'm aware that there wasn't any jury, because when you come to read the documents, there doesn't seem to be any sort of like
mediation.
Yeah, let's just go with that. There's no sort of thing where the judge sort of goes back and like talks to someone else about what they think. I think it's just based on his opinion. But regardless, it made me think like, imagine if you got like jury duty on that day and you got to go and be like the jury for that case. People did go in though. From what I could tell, you could go in to the court and just watch as a spectator. And I think a few fans did.
Like even for big murder cases, you can have even if you're not involved in the case, you can go in. You know, that's like just kind of the only example I can think of off the top of my head is like Ramirez, the Night Stalker in Los Angeles. Like that's a massive case, and you had these girls going in who were like obsessed with Ramirez, and they were sitting in the courtroom, you know, making googly eyes at him, which is so fucking weird, you know. But yeah, you could I think with most court cases, unless it's like they've said, you know, it's closed and nobody can come in, like you can just go into court and listen to court cases.
I'd have been. It'd been very hard to have kept my mouth shut in there, but I digress. So
shoe up and throwing it, whatever.
Madam,
Boo! Boo! You're a liar! Boo!
work it, Smoochie. You got this.
Holding up little support signs.
Oh no. But yeah, so let's break down of because these get brought up a lot, so it's important to know some company names. So all three of these are owned by Tobias. We've got Svensk Drama Pop, which is Tobias's Swedish company, and this tends to deal with a lot of like the music side of things, the especially in this incident, the invoices and the salaries of the performers. We've got Papastrello Limited, which is based in the UK. Slay, represent. And as far as I've read, at least at the time of the lawsuit, it sort of mostly dealt with like merchandising and things like that. I think it's different now just because of staffing, little things there. I think if there's some UK staff members, they are usually hired through there. And then finally we've got Santasma. I might be saying that wrong. Santasma Touring Incorporated, which is Tobias's USA company, and that mostly handles touring, shipments of equipment, blah blah blah. So yeah, as I said, he's the director of all of the above, and they all bring in different revenues, blah blah blah.
And he has been the owner and director of all these the whole time, because that's actually a thing that they try at some points to say that he bought the companies at some point from someone else. Remember?
Yeah, you can see they're incorporated even back in like 2010, some of them.
Yeah, so like there was a point in the lawsuit where they're like, the company, he then bought the company of somebody, and you're like, no, he had it the whole time. And these things are like, you can look them up publicly. You can't just make stuff up now.
A little more of who's who. This is all the members of Ghost prior to the law and leading up to the lawsuit. So we're not going to be talking about Jutty and all that.
No.
He ain't involved. So obviously we had Tobias Forge. He's there from 2006 to hopefully now on vocals. We had Simon Soderberg, who was there from 2010 to 2016 on lead guitar. We had Martin Persner from 2010-ish to 2016 on rhythm guitar. We had Gustav Lindstrom. He was in from 2006 to 2011 playing bass. This is also known as
Gura.
Gura, better known as Carlos Santana. He was in Repugnant, Subvision. We'll get on to him later because he saves the day. We have Rikard Ottosson. He was in from 2011 to 2013. He took over Gura for bass. And then we had Linton Rubino, who was in 2013 to 2014 for bass. And then we had Henrik Palm, who was in 2015 to 2016 on bass.
Yeah.
I'm yelling because I'll get to this in a second. Bear in mind that's only a year. Keep that in your head. Megan Thomas, who was in just for the year of 2016 on bass. Askell, fuck me, I apologize for this name pronunciation. Axel Holmgren, who was in 2010 to 2014 on drums. We have Mauro Rubino. He was in 2011 to 2016 on keys. And Martin Hjerstedt. He was also in from 2015 to 2016. Again, just a year on drums. Now, the people who are suing, they were Simon Soderberg. Reiterate again, he was lead guitarist for 4 years from 2010 to 2016. Henrik Palm, 2015 to 2016 on bass. He was in for a year. Mauro Rubino, 2011 to 2016 on keys. So he was in for 5 years. Can't do maths. And Martin, I'm going to call him Martin H because I can't say his surname, but just bear in mind it's not Martin Perser. So Martin H, 2015 to 2016 on drums. So again, a year. So two of these people who are suing came into the band in 2015 and were only there for a year and had the audacity to be like, yeah, we've been here from the beginning, so we deserve the same amount of money. But I digress. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get on to them.
The gumption. The nerve.
The gumption.
The gumption. Like,
I will. I will say an important fact that I'll get onto a bit later. But when Megan was coming in, Henrik was teaching her some parts on the bass, to sort of help her get to scratch with talk. Because I think Henrik was going to switch instruments. I can't remember which. And he felt like he wasn't paid for that as a specific service. So that is one separate thing that we'll get into, but just keep those two people connected in mind.
Megan's not involved in the lawsuit. Megan's an American who's just happens to be there for
She was
Couple
smart and got a contract, apparently.
because she's American.
His words, not ours.
Yeah.
Right, I've got some legal jargon, so I do apologise, but this is important. So there's some important definitions here, which I had to fucking Google a lot of these. So we've got an economic association, and I wrote a little side note here that a good example of this would be like how the European Union works. An economic association is a group or organisation formed by countries, businesses, or individuals to work together on economic matters. The main goal is to improve trade, cooperation, and economic growth among its members. By joining forces, members can benefit from shared resources, reduce trade barriers, and coordinate policies, making it easier and more profitable for them to do business with each other. So that's one thing that gets brought up a lot. And the second thing is a partnership agreement. Now, there's a third thing, and in my opinion, it's almost the same fucking thing, but I will give you the specific definitions of both, but they do kind of chop and change a little bit, especially because a lot of this is translated from Swedish. So it's like, and I've asked a few of my Swedish friends, and they were like, these documents are a bit weird because they chop and change the Swedish words, depending on who's saying what. But I digress. But yeah, so we've got the partnership agreement, and a partnership agreement is a legal document that outlines how two or more people or businesses will work together in a partnership. It sets the rules for how the partnership will operate, including how profits and losses will be shared, and what each partner's responsibilities are, and how decisions will be made. For example, if two friends decide they want to start a business together, a partnership agreement would explain how much money each one is putting in, how they will split the profits, and what happens if one of the persons wants to leave the partnership. It helps prevent misunderstandings by clearly defining everyone's roles and expectations. This should have been put in fucking 2010, in my opinion, but hey ho, I'm getting ahead of myself once again. And then we've got a companionship agreement. In law, a companionship agreement is a legal contract between two people who agree to provide companionship and support and love, to support and love, and support
And love each
to
other.
each other. To support,
They're
it's
Care
basically a
Bears.
marriage. And to support each other, often without any romantic or financial obligations. There you go, it's marriage without the love and sex.
Care Bears.
This agreement outlines the expectations, roles, and the boundaries of their relationship, such as how they will spend time together and how any other specific terms they agree upon. For example, an elderly person might enter into a companionship agreement with someone who agrees to visit them regularly, keep them company, and perhaps help with daily activities. The agreement is legally binding and helps ensure that both parties clearly understand and agree to their roles and responsibilities within the relationship. You literally have to have contracts to be friends with people.
No, it's more for the that's a good example though, because it's more for like elderly people. Say that an elderly person's on their own, right? And a neighbor decides to come start helping them. That they can enter into an agreement that whenever that elderly person dies, that neighbor then will be and will inherit, or have access to their estate. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, because they put in some time and effort to them.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the case because like let's say like if you have a neighbor who has family and you help them, you might not have any like legal standing if you like are very good friends with them. Like their money will go to their child. Whereas if they said to you, and you just kind of come to an agreement verbally somehow, and then also put it down on paper, maybe like in a will or whatever, you will also get some money when they die. Is that kind of thing, Well, it's a bit different than it's kind of the same, but a bit different than a partnership agreement, where a partnership agreement is two people both invest in a business, and while they decide they'll split the shares. Whereas the other one is more like, it's kind of like, like you agree, like it's also like you can have it as like a rich person. You will agree to come hang out with me on a Friday night.
But don't expect me to pay for everything.
No, like the agreement could be like, you can come hang out with me, I'll pay for stuff as long as you come hang out with me. And then like at some point you'll get money or whatever. Like it's that kind of thing almost. It's kind of weird. It is an odd thing to think of like young people doing it.
Tobias draws one up and is like, right, so when we're on the tour buses on a Friday, we need to watch this movie, and it's in writing. You have to watch this movie with me on a Friday.
If we are watching the Alien franchise, it's only Alien we're watching and not Aliens, because Alien is the good one.
It's in writing, we have to do it.
Yes. We will watch Evil Dead once a month. I don't know if he likes Evil Dead or not. He probably does. But yeah, it's kind of like that. It's more of like non-business related agreements.
Right.
Like an
Whereas the
elderly
partnership
person.
agreement is
Yeah.
business related.
Yeah, because the other person isn't like gonna. It's not. There's no. From what I can imagine, the companionship agreement is there's no money kind of exchanging hands in that way of like, you put money into my house almost, like type thing. Like, you help me pay my mortgage or whatever. I don't. Again, like from what I can gather from what I've looked up and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like it's more to protect like an older person from like, oh, some rando coming in and like, stealing all their money.
Yeah.
But regardless of all this, the fact that none of these two things existed is why we're here in the first place right now
Yes,
on this
yes.
day. We'll get onto it later once we deep dive it. We've kind of touched on this a little bit anyway, but we'll go through the beginnings of Ghost because it's important because of essentially who was there for the first 4 years. So we all know that in approximately 2006, Tobias sat down and wrote Satan's Knot, which later turned to Stand By Him. Tobias felt that the song was too bizarre for any project that he was currently working on, brackets, Subvision, etc. However, he was very excited about this and wanted Gustav Lindström, also known as Gura, who was in, like I say, Repugnant and Subvision with Tobias previously, to help record the songs since he worked in a studio and accumulated some hours. They collectively decided that if Tobias could write 2 more songs in the same manner, this would turn into a project. And I've put project in bold, inverted commas. It took almost 2 years to come up with 2 more songs. However, in 2007 to 2009, Tobias was on and off writing music. He had just become a father. Guru had also moved to Oslo, so the time together was very few and far in between. In 2009, Tobias had a I need to do something with my life moment and wanted to get the project, like I say, in bold, going. With Guru in Oslo, Tobias called upon Simon Soderbergh, who was in Magna Carta Cartel with Tobias, where he played bass, I forgot to mention that, to help out. He finally came up with 2 more songs, which were Prime Mover and Death Knell. Now, it's important to note, at this point, it was not discussed that Simon would play in the band live. He would only be helping out with the recordings, so bear that in mind.
And he was paid for his, like, and at that time as well, like, they paid him for the studio time, whereas instead of, if Simon, because like obviously we're gonna get to it, but like Simon was saying, like, I was in from the ground, ground floor on us here, and it's like, but if he's as invested in the band as he's trying to make out in the documents, you would have just let them use the studio for free. Because like you're going to be in the band too, so like it's your project too apparently, Simon. So why don't you like help? Like he's like, no, I need my money. Like making the money kind of rub fingers together thing. Money.
So I forgot to mention actually this lawsuit. You can read a long sort of with the big pieces of evidence. I've put everything into a Google Drive, which I'll try and link in the description of this podcast if they allow me to do a Google Drive link in there. If not, I'll pop it under one of the Twitters on the I'm All Ears podcast that you can go through, have a look. And I've also put together a little PowerPoint that you can go through whilst you're listening and click on all the different bits of pieces of evidence that we're discussing and sort of read through and help come up with your own interpretations.
Yeah.
So we're on to 2010. So trying to think what the main sort of things happened here. So obviously the demo's recorded, as we said, put on MySpace. Ghost took off overnight. In the April, you can see there's a email where they're agreeing to sign to Rise Above, and you can see that there's a contract here, but it's not really dated, so it's a bit question mark.
Yeah.
What is interesting to see though is how the contract is signed on behalf of Tobias and Gura, and Ulf Jonas Olsson, who was apparently the band's first drummer, but he never recorded with the band. But he never made any. No, sorry. Wait, I wrote down he never recorded with the band, and he also never made it to the live shows. But he's just on the contract for whatever reasons. I think he was just at a couple of rehearsals, and luckily acknowledges that he was never part of the business.
There's also a contract with Iron Pegasus for Elizabeth, the vinyl for Elizabeth, which is only signed by Tobias and Gura. Nobody else is on that as well, and that's kind of important too because that was agreed upon before the Rise Above record contract.
Okay.
So it was. So like at that time, there was still only Tobias and Gura. So if anybody could sue Tobias to be like, I'm also a part of Ghost and deserve some money of this, it's Gura. But like weirdly, he didn't sue him because
I was
Gura's
gonna
not an
say,
idiot.
yeah, Guru, like if Guru had come into court and be like, you know what, fuck this, I've been here since 2006, he would, out of all of everyone, I'd be like,
Yeah.
you know what, fair. But
He's owed something. But Gura, like, I think because Gura had been in a lot of bands with Tobias, he understood how Tobias worked. You know,
he
like
doesn't want to share food.
it's basically how it is. When he gets into a band, it has to be how he wants it. And that's why Repugnant and Subvision kind of didn't last, because he wouldn't let anybody else in. You know, like they're banging on the door to get in, and he's like, "No, I've come up with everything. Go away." And but it's not in a bad way. You know, like he himself calls himself a bit of a dictator in the studio because he has in his mind what he wants this to look and sound like.
We might end up getting, I can't remember it, I may have wrote this down, so we may come across it again later on in the episode, about even in the emails that were submitted as evidence, you can see like the ghouls being like, are we not allowed to have opinions? And Tobe's pretty much like, yeah, you can, and I'll listen, but obviously they might not be set in stone. I get the ultimate
I'll
say.
take them on board, but they may not ever go actually on the ship.
But yeah, so bear in mind, like I say, in April there was contracts being exchanged already. In the summer of 2010, the crucifix was trademarked, and then it wasn't until September where the search for the live show members sort of began, because Tobe had booked a few shows to sort of tag along with Repugnant because they were doing a few comeback shows, and Ghosts were kind of booked in so he could sort of be like, I have a circuit to take this thing on board.
Yeah.
And you can see then the evidence that he's already trying out masks, things, There's a quote here from Guru from the 9th of September 2010 where he's like, can I come in with input regarding the band, etc., or do you just decide? I think, brackets, don't get me wrong, I think it would be fun to have a say, but this is supposed to be our band, as in Tobe and Guru's. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. Just keep that in your head.
He's like, please don't do what you did with everything else, please.
Yeah.
And he's like, sorry.
Please
Also,
don't
fun.
take everything over.
Yeah, there's that obviously that fun thing of like him coming in with masks, and he's like trying to figure out how to get a furnace into his house, and his wife is like, "Hell no, you can buy that shit online. You're not bringing no damn furnace into this house. We got kids."
But yeah, in the September of 2010, there's a very important email, which was done on the 15th of September, and it's between Tobe and Gura, and this was when they were bringing in members, and this is interesting because Gura is stating that he would pull out if Martin Persner was brought back in. Now, bear in mind, Gura and Martin were in Subvision together, but then you later see a lineup of Subvision which didn't include Gura. So I think there was some previous beef in Subvision with those two.
Gonna be honest, he was right.
But yeah, it's just that this email's important because it shows that it was backing up Tobe's claim that he was using people for just who he knew and who was nearby, rather than capability and who was near.
Yeah, but also as well, it wasn't like kind of how with Martin, it's a bit different because Martin was his best friend. And if there's some sign of this being successful, I can see Tobias being like, I need to get my best friend in on this. This would be so good for him too. You know, and Gara's like, bro, no.
But yeah, and then obviously in October, Opus was released, and late October there was the Hammer of Doom festival, Live Evil, so Ghost started touring. And then in the December, in the December they're all talking about the next releases, and everything seems pretty civil, between sort of everyone in the band. Simon's been taken on board, Martin Persner's here, everyone's all nice, cool, everyone seems to be all happy. And then they started having meetings with who's going to be people's managers. Magnus Larnhead, who's also known as Lana, was sort of taken on and then fired because Tobe felt like the chemistry wasn't right. And then Tobias was like, I'll just manage this band myself. Oh, her.
That lasted 5 minutes. Because the very first show, didn't he talk about the fact that he was also their tour manager?
Yeah.
As well, and you're like, you can't actually ask other people to do these things. There are people that you can hire to do this. He's like, no, I want to do it. Do I have to tell you to start the tape? Shit, you start the tape.
We get on to 2011, and at this point, two of the sort of plaintiffs if that's the right word, are in the band. So we've got Simon and Mauro Rubino. They're in the band at this point. So they're in from 2011. So yeah, basically, Guru and Martin are still beefing at this point with who gets to say in the band, and Guru feels like him and Tobias should have the ultimate say because they've been there since the beginning, and everyone else is just sort of like. Even he mentions a hierarchy within the band,
Yeah.
saying like, "Yeah, Toby, if you're going to be at the top, it needs to be this, and then this person, like maybe I should become second, and blah blah blah." So the email's quite heated. If you can read it, it's quite fucking hell. It's he calls Martin a help out, which is like.
Boy does not like Martin, but like in the long term, he was right. But like it is kind of funny. Like I mean, you read like early kind of stuff from them, and McCur's just like, "Listen, everybody, this is our band. Do you understand?"
Well,
no.
speaking of, on the 2nd of March, all the bands attended a meeting together, and Martin took minutes for whatever reason, and it was agreed upon that, and this is the quote. Tobias has full mandate regarding the aesthetics and music. Tobias will be responsive and open to ideas and suggestions from other members. However, he will decide himself what to use aesthetically and musically after presenting it and discussing it with the other members. However, the issue if Ghost should do gigs or not should jointly be decided by everyone in the band, which I don't think that happened, babes. I
No.
don't think it did. What was also discussed was what they expected from a manager, and there was a long list of roles and responsibilities. And looking at them, it seems scary to think at one point Tobias did all this on his own with very little experience, as well as leading the band (brackets band).
It's one of I think they said I think like it was like why did Martin take minutes, and it was like I think it's his brother was like a secretary or something like that there, and he like so he knew that that's a thing that they did in meetings. So Martin was like, do this. Weird coincidence that comes up. They don't take minutes for a very important meeting that supposedly happened. Weirdly, but they take minutes for this one. It's just funny how that works, isn't it? You can see in this like he is like what them trying to say in the lawsuit that they agreed straight away that they all had equal say. It's just bullshit. Like no matter what opinion you feel on like Tobias and the way he handles things, like there is enough evidence to prove that these people were like this. He will decide what this band looks and sounds like. We will suggest what could happen with the sound and look, but he has final say.
Well, there's a quote that came up in the court transcript, which I may jump ahead onto this while it's been brought up because it pisses me off to no end. Where like I won't say who because I'll keep you in suspense. Someone said, "Oh yeah, it's really fun because Tobias has to do all the work, and then we can just fuck off around town and party and shit, basically."
Yeah,
and they admitted that really early on. But
yeah,
so yeah, boo.
And that's admitted to a person who wasn't in the band. You know, like they took advantage of the fact that Tobias likes doing this stuff. Like Tobias clearly loves being the head of a band. He's done it like 3 times. You know what I mean? One time it was really successful, but like, you know, he likes doing all these things. Like he likes making the posters and he likes writing the songs and he likes kind of coming up with all this stuff. So they took advantage of the fact that they have a guy here who's willing to do all this work. You know, like he wants to do all this work and he's already doing all this work. So they took advantage of that and went, sure, you can do that. It means we don't have to do it. Sweet, we have a free ride. And then whenever they realize that, you know,
but we want a 1/6 of the share.
Yeah, they realize they're on 2 very different roller coasters at that point. You know what I mean? Like they're on a very simple kids roller coaster, and then they look over and Tobias is on this really cool roller coaster.
The Nemesis Inferno.
Yeah, it's like loads of twists and hoops and all. Like, why are we on one? Because you agreed you didn't want to go on that one. Like, it is kind of they shot themselves in the foot by being lazy. That's
Pretty
the long
much.
short of it. You know what I mean? They were like. Because, like, you have to remember, like, these are just dudes. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of people seem to forget as well. Like, they're just guys. They're just, you know what guys are like.
They don't communicate and express feelings.
They're just guys being dudes.
Yeah,
better than that.
Yeah, they're just guys being bros, dude. You know, like, and so, like, that's just the way they are. But, like, Tobias is, like, you know, Mr. Try 110% on these things. Because, like, you have, like, old Repugnant interviews where they're like, he doesn't work but he does makes all the posters, messages all of the fanzines, records, writes all the music, all this here, and it's like maybe his job is the band. Like, it's just how his mindset has been with these things, and they took advantage of it. They were like, sweet, we've
Yeah.
got this little idiot here to do all this, and he's like, who's really the idiot? As he's like, writing all these amazing songs. Yeah, just annoys me. This whole thing annoys me.
Well, speaking of being annoyed, Guru left in April.
Oh,
But it was around about this time that Niels Nielsen sort of became involved with the band, and he ended up being their sort of tour manager in the end. But like, I've got an interesting quote from him, and it's only the short. It was a long quote, but the one thing I took away from him was that the costs exceeded the income. So again, bear all these in mind.
yeah.
But yeah, the band was just touring heavily, did the festival circuits. Now, whilst they were on tour, sort of around August, they started meeting with other potential managers. They met with Justin Archangel. They had, they took him out in Linköping just to get to know him. They originally declined to work with Rick Sales, who, spoiler alert, ended up being their manager, if you know.
And he still is their manager.
Yep, it still is their manager. But it was quite funny because Tob made this decision without anyone else. That he was like, actually, we're gonna go with Rick Sales. But if you look on the Rick Sales contracts, you see that it's Tobias, and then all the other people that signed it, it's doing business as Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things in this contract that I think really it winds me up is that even to this day, post lawsuit, as far as I can tell, Tobias has to give Rick Sales 20% of his earnings. The others do not.
Yeah.
The reason this was done was so things like any income on Magna Carta Cartel or any of the projects that they did outside of Ghost while Ghost were not touring, or if they had any downtime, were not given to Rick. So essentially, they were not expected to give anything to Rick Sales, but
Yeah.
Tobias is. But they're all the same apparently. So
Yeah,
Lovely.
they all put all the same effort in. Didn't you know that? They all put the same effort in.
Effort.
All
They all
It's just
the same
one's paying
investment.
20% more.
Yeah.
They're all taking the same risk, don't you know?
Yeah, we're all losing out on the same amount of money, don't you know?
I was gonna say, can I go back to the cost exceed income quote a second?
Yeah.
It's basically that the whole, like, if you read a lot of interviews with Tobias after the lawsuit happened, he basically said to become more successful, you have to basically give off the effect that you're more successful.
Ah, yes, I know the bit you mean.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because like you can even see it in their shows now, because like their stage shows are on the same level of some bands that are selling out stadiums. Like not on the
Mhm.
same like well, but I mean like production level, like production intricacies.
Yeah.
Like with the flames and the big backdrops and stuff like that there and all that. Like the level of kind of theatrics that's put into the show, because I think a lot of people, like, even like now, because whenever people talk about Ghost going on tour, people worry about tickets. They'll go, oh god, there's gonna be this mad rush for tickets. It's like they didn't sell out their last American tour. The only
No.
show they sold out was the LA Forum date, and that was because it was a special show. So they're still not like, and even at the height of Mariana Cross being really popular, they didn't sell out all their shows.
No.
Like, I'm not saying they're not successful, but they are clearly, but they're not as successful as the image that they give off on stage. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're giving off the image of people who are selling out multiple nights in the same arena type.
Yeah, like doing residencies.
Yeah, type thing. Yeah, it's sort of like 2 or 3 nights, and they're selling out every night, and like that's the kind of image that he wanted to give off. But that costs a lot of money. You have to basically spend more money than you're making to kind of give that image, because if you give off that image, people are going to go, these guys clearly know what they're doing. Like, even with their very simple shows when they started, you can still see that there's some effort put in. You know what I mean? Like, even when they're just standing there in their like little Spirit Halloween costumes. I can't see shit. Neither can I. We're all dealing with problems here, But like, if you look at their light shows, like I remember somebody described it as like Dario Argente.
Oh yeah.
That kind of like really heavy, solid colors and stuff like that. There, like, there's clearly an effort put in, and like It comes up in the lawsuit as well. We're saying about getting a tour bus, instead of sleeping in a van.
Yeah, they were like, we won't make money, but we'll look, we'll be comfortable, and we'll look like a big band.
Yeah, you look like you're more successful, and like it worked out for him because it's true. You know, like it is 100% the mindset you need to go on with bands. You have to act like you're more successful than you are. It's that mindset. Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
You
know.
have to mentally have a big dick.
Yeah, I would love that.
Exactly.
It's like that's the type of quote I like right there. No, but I was just gonna say, but like Rick is 100% right. Like even with the taking the 20%, like managers are insane. Like when you start looking into these things and seeing the money they take off their artists, you're
Yeah.
like, holy fuck.
Yeah. But interestingly, another clause in the Rick Sales contract states that if Tobias leaves, the contract is void. But if the others leave, it can continue. So it again, it's putting that importance of,
Yeah.
who's in the band.
Yeah, the contract kind of said like if Tobias goes, Rick goes with him, and they don't have a manager anymore. You know,
Yeah.
but like if anybody else leaves, it's fine. Rick stays. The moneymaker's still here. And also as well, they tried to use the signing of that contract as them being as important in the band as Tobias is, and I think it's like I think Rick kind of just said to them like I can't remember if I'm getting it wrong or not. It was they just got them to sign it so they'd feel important.
Yeah, I think I remember something about that.
Yeah,
There's also talk of them doing it on behalf of Tobias as Sven's drama pup rather than as sort of Ghost as well. I've got this. I think I wrote this down incorrectly, so we may need to fact check that. But either way, it's doing business as something rather than you are actually actively on this contract as yourself type thing.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. But yeah, and then they sort of carry on talking about things where apparently one of the potential financial advisors at the time came up with this idea of because in Sweden, if you don't know, I'm not going to say the site names because I don't want people digging. Basically, a lot of information is public about anyone. You can find out who owns what businesses, whatever, like the names behind them. So if someone registers the band Ghost in Sweden, you're gonna find out who's behind it. And obviously, this is an anonymous band, so a financial advisor sort of advised that you could be registered under a fake name and put it under a front. It's basically like think those American candy shops in like Oxford Street or something, where it's like this is not a good American candy shop. This is definitely money laundering.
yeah.
But a little bit more legal. So
This is not a bakery. This is a rock band.
yeah, it literally says like they said you could be a food retailer or a bakery and come up with a different name. So like in these in these emails they're trying to come up with that, but apparently they needed the Ghoul's social security numbers, and I think they're all a bit like, why? Why do you need this? So again, they're already like, well, I don't want to give you my info, but it's like, but I'm in the band. But I'm not going to take any risks.
Yeah, I don't want to take any risks. I don't want to put any investment in. I don't want him to know my home address or social security number. But I totally deserve 1/6 of this.
But it was funny because during like the meetings with this financial advisor, this was where a partnership agreement was first brought up, but obviously ultimately nothing was ever signed, but it was discussed on this day. Basically, October was just a bit of a fucking mess as to whether they needed to do a partnership agreement or not, and there was a bit of money. I think it was about £31,000 or $39,000 that the band would have to withdraw from certain merch agreements as almost like an advance in order just to make it through the next year. And they were just, going through a bunch of places to help get like financial help and things like that. And ultimately it came to the idea that Tobias would almost be like a boss with Svensk Drama Pop. And the Ghouls would have to invoice him and invoice Svensk Drama Pop for a salary, essentially. It's a bit like when you read into it, it's a bit like all over the place, and my head can't figure out. So good luck looking into that bit. But that's basically what happened. Was Tobe's like a boss, the others are self-employed, and they invoice him for their services, essentially.
Also, another thing about the merchandise, they got money for T-shirts, and the way it worked was if they didn't sell all the T-shirts, he would then have to pay back the difference of what didn't sell.
Just Tobias.
Yeah, Tobias would have to because Tobias is the one who got the merchandise deal for the T-shirts. He's the one that put the money in to get the T-shirts made. through them. They give him the money for the t-shirts, and then they were like, if you don't sell the t-shirts, and I still think this is like a thing now, even though they're bigger, but like obviously they will sell, but like if you don't sell the t-shirts, you have to then pay back the difference that you didn't sell,
Yeah.
And then none of the other guys ever suggested to help if that ever came up.
Mm.
So he'd have to pay it out of his own pocket. There's a lot of things you'll find out that Tobias has paid out of his own pocket for this band, and still
Yeah.
to this day does, because the man's an idiot. I need more fireworks. No, you don't. You're gonna set the front row on fire. Shut up. They're fine. Look at them. They need a tan anyway. They're all very
Oh.
pale.
I'm gonna die. That's the one,
Yeah.
probably the best place to die.
Yeah, listen, if I'm gonna have something like cause of death on my birth certificate, it's sizzled to death by pyrotechnics on stage. She also told me before she went into the concert she doesn't want you to sue. She knew that was the risk. But yeah, like a lot of money came out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
to do
I
this.
mean, even at the beginning, like end of 2011, like shit was messy. Like Nils was getting pissed off with people. To cut a long story short, and yeah, already some tensions growing. So then we move on to 2012, and this is kind of a big year because this is when Infestissimum started to be recorded, and there's a lot of hearsay of like who was there doing what basically, and who put what amount of efforts in, and we'll get to that. But one of the big things was, obviously we've just mentioned that the way that they've set up the business, as it were, was as Tob as the employer, and then the others being self-employed and invoicing. The problem with doing that though, and I'm pretty sure this works the same in the UK as well. I don't know about America, but when you are self-employed, regardless of whether you're getting income or not, you're a little bit like, I don't know how it works in the UK. Basically, in Sweden at least, if you are self-employed and you're getting some sort of earnings from that work, you can't claim your welfare. So if you're on low income, you can't claim for help. So you're better just to not be employed, basically. And this was the case for Martin, where like a lot of stuff was just not working, where he was like, I'm self-employed, but I can't get welfare, but I'm also not getting enough money to survive. So Martin sends this big ass email. It is quite touching, actually. It's well written. Sort of to Kristen, who works for Rick Sales and is still part of Ghost Management team to this day. Asking for, a bit of help. And Kristen, to be fair, sends a good faith payment and sort of helps and things. And then Ghost signs with a company called Seven. Oh, sorry. They signed with a company called 7-4 Entertainment for 750,000, I'm guessing US dollars. But it's an advance, so they technically have to pay that back at a later date, which is insane.
Also, as well, like talking about like unemployment and stuff like that. There is a bit later on where Simon Soderbergh said that he quit his job at a records shop because he was only doing a couple of days because he was going on tour and then coming back and doing a couple of days. Like he wasn't working enough. He felt like he wasn't working there enough. What you call it? Be helpful or whatever. So he quit, and then he like moved in with his girlfriend and was like living off her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you just keep your job if you've no money? Just keep the job.
Yeah. Although I suppose in if I'm going to say anything in their defense, I suppose it is hard to especially in this day and age, to have a job that's flexible like that, where it's like, okay, I'm going to fuck off for 2 months and then I'm going to come back and just work part time and then fuck off again for another 2 months. Like, I understand that's not doable for everyone, especially in this fucking economy, Jesus. But yeah, that was what was going down basically. I think that was where a lot of the problems sort of started, was that no one had enough money to live off the band, but they couldn't jobs to support themselves either.
Yeah, but I'd also like to reaffirm as well that like Tobias didn't have a lot of money as well. He was living off of royalties from Opus from Rise Above, whereas all the money
2017.
Yeah, all the way up until like Meliora. Like once Meliora became because Meliora is their most successful record probably. Like it's the one that shot them up, because obviously it's the Grammy one. They were getting on TV in America and stuff like that there. But like all the money that they were getting from the band, like he was getting from the band, he was putting back into the band to pay for the crew and the tour buses and the equipment and the lighting, the costumes, the insurance, and all that stuff. And he was living off of Opus Eponymous. And if you look at Opus Eponymous, like even now, like if you have it on Spotify, like I did math on it, and I don't have the note or whatever, but like the amount of like I'm just going off of what I could see on Spotify. I don't obviously I don't have the full in depth of how many people have listened to it, but it comes out to like $500,000 or something
over the course of like how many years?
Yeah, that it's been up on, and that's just off Spotify, and that's like not, and he's not getting that whole $500,000 because then he has to pay money to lawyers, he has to pay money to his managers, and they both get their own separate, like 20% each. He has to then pay the record label, so like he'll start with 500,000, and by the end of it, he'll still maybe have at the end of it like 100,000. Like the rest of it is all gone to paying debts that he's owed out for other things, managers, lawyers, label, so like being a musician is probably one of the dumbest things you could do.
I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of people don't actually realize what other costs come in with being in a band, and like, especially if you're doing it yourself the majority of the time.
Yeah,
because like so many little things you have to pay for.
Yeah, because we said talking about the advance payment from 7-4 Entertainment, like he will get that at the beginning of every kind of album creation cycle. It's like a book author as well. They get advances. It's kind of like to entice them to make it, or write the book.
Yeah.
Write the book, make the album. Here is a lump sum of money to help you do that, and also to kind of like again, to entice you to write this thing, do this thing. But like he will have to pay that back. So he could get like $1 million at the start of an album cycle. He has to pay that $1 million back, you know? So like, like there's all of this debt that that he builds up whenever you're making.
He's taking the risk on that no one else is.
Yeah, and from everything that I've, like all the emails I've read from this thing, all of the contracts that I've read, unless there's some weird contract that they never brought up, like he's the one that has all the risk is in his court, like financially. And again, he's the guy that has the kids. He's the only one out of these people that has like the kids, a family, like a nuclear family.
Someone please think of the children.
Someone please think of the children. You just got these two twins, like hello. But yeah, he's the one that he has like a lot of risk. I guess it's a big risk. For him on his own. But like these are like, I think the reason I can't be like, I'm not going to be biased, I'm not going to be shitty, is because it's just like, I just hate the idea of all of this risk, him putting all this risk in, all this hard work in, all of this effort, and them just kind of sitting, like, I'm not saying they didn't put any effort in, because like, they did, because they did on the tours, like they went on the tours, they played the instruments, they did record some stuff in the studios with like guitars and drums and stuff like that there, but it was never on the level. But yeah, that's why it annoys me, and that's why I find it very hard to feel any kind of like, I feel sympathy for them because I get it at the time when they were doing that, because like it must suck to try, because like I don't have a lot of money myself. I understand what it's like living, money you get to money you get, because it's hard. But like whenever it comes to this lawsuit, I can't feel any sympathy for them, because like yous were there and had plenty of opportunity to financially put money into this to help
get money back.
Yeah, and you would have got money. Yeah, you would have got paid back on it. You would have got money back. You had a chance to kind of put your foot into this band, to put your stamp into this band in some shape or form, to make it also your band. But you didn't, because you realized you had a guy that would do all the jobs, and you just wanted to go on tour, make money,
fuck bitches,
and then fuck bitches. Like, and who is now the bitch?
Yeah, they had, exactly what you say. They had every opportunity to actually put something into the band so that they could get something back out, and they just didn't.
Another thing as well I always find really funny, where they say like it's their band too, and they make Ghost, and I'm like, it's kind of funny that yous are gone and Ghost still sounds like Ghost.
Yeah.
But your own band doesn't sound anything like Ghost. And like, you can like Priest and Magna Carta Cartel all you like. I'm not, you can do what you like. I personally find it weird, like in a band that almost destroyed the band that you supposedly like, but that's just me. But yeah, like Priest and Magna Carta Cartel don't sound anything like Ghost. Whereas if you listen to all of Tobias's old stuff, even Subvision and Repugnant, you can like sort of see Ghost in there. You know, like Ghost is already like in there, you know, under different guises. Like one's a angry teenager that doesn't wash his hair, and then the other one is a sad, horny 20-year-old who doesn't have any girlfriends. Like, their powers combined created Ghost. But yeah, like they left and Ghost still sounded the same, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas
So how important really were you?
yeah, exactly. Like it's just baffles me. Like it's so strange.
I mean, there's a little bit of communication there. Like, to be fair, Martin was pretty good with communicating. Like, they had on the 1st of July, in 2012, there was a bunch of emails sort of between the festival shows where Martin was kind of asking questions. And Tobe, to be fair, was a bit like, I don't know. Like, are we getting the remaining of this final salary? I don't know. Ask Rick. And they're like,
Yeah,
are we
I don't know.
do we need to find jobs while we're off tour? I don't know. Like, bro. No, he did like. I'm being very blasé about it.
Yeah.
There was a little bit more to it than that, but it was, if you're gonna shorten it, that was the short answer.
Yeah, because it like also established as well that Martin seems to have like either a point like they kind of agreed that Martin is their like the
Spokesperson
Ghouls
was-
spokesperson. Yeah, like so because like all of them emails are coming from Martin about this. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, again, they're too lazy to fucking do it themselves. Oh, Martin's doing it.
And he's the one that's actually pushing for like more organization and meetings and rehearsals and, you know, things that were going to benefit the band. And basically, yeah, that happened. But what's kind
Lots
of
of-
interesting next?
lots of emails.
There is a lot of emails. But speaking of, what's interesting next is in the September of 2012. There's an email from Kristen, you know, Rick Sells Kristen,
Mhm.
where and it's funny because on this piece of evidence that they've submitted, it's the email, and she's literally highlighted. I don't know if she's highlighted this or if Tobe's done this, because this was part of Tobe's evidence. It literally highlights in the email a form of royalty payment that is a work for hire paid musician. So back in 2012, this was already established.
Yep. 18th
Mhm.
December
And,
2012. In black and white, work for hire paid musicians.
Yep. And the same again, after a few emails back and forward in discussing certain things about, you know, who's helping what to get off the ground, and literally says, so this was from a email from Martin to Cece, who's Tobe's and still is Tobe's lawyer. And it says, I explicitly asked him in early December if that's how they feel, and they said no. Ghost, according to them, is absolutely Tobias's creation. It's
Yeah.
like, it's there, black and white. It's there.
Mhm.
There's also an email from Martin. I'm not entirely sure where. I'm trying to scroll through this. But yeah, there's like an email from Martin where he's like, you know, we agree that we will be hired musicians. Oh, there it is. Yeah. We are part of the project. We are expenses just like everything else, given we are hired musicians.
Yep.
And that
There you
was... When was this? This was on March 15th, 2012. So this actually... Like, this email from Martin to Kristen was this big, massive email that the girls conveniently forgot about. That was like, you know, says, now since Tobias Forge and we have decided on him owning the company as a whole and us being employees and serve as hired musicians rather than being part owners of the actual company with all the perks and risks, we came to the conclusion that this is doable if and only if we get paid for our label, which basically means like they basically came to an agreement that their personal interest in the band should be bought, and so then they would be hired musicians. So they basically got a payment from the label to basically buy their in air quotes shares
Yeah.
from the band, and they all got this money. All of them,
Yeah.
like, except Tobias. Tobias was like, "This is my buying," because like this solution we all could agree on, and then brackets says, yes, this was a group decision for good and bad, was that we get paid per gig. This is because Tobias Forge was unwilling to have us on payroll for periods of no work or gigs. Only fair. This is this is his email, which they conveniently forgot about.
That also changes though, I think, because it's
Yeah,
like
that's-
that quote I
yeah.
said earlier. But also, isn't it interesting that two of the people that's ended up suing aren't even here yet? We have not even got to them, and there's already all this kicking off.
Didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, like they basically sold out their right to have part of the money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was in 2012.
Yeah.
That's before Infesticism is released. That's during, I think, the kind of Infesticism cooking period.
Yeah.
But, like, there was clearly discussions at that time. It's almost like whenever Ghost finally became successful, they went, shit.
Oh
Oh,
shit.
fuck. Because, like, at this point as well, I can imagine, because, like, he says himself in interviews that he had people in the band that thought the music sucked, Like, there's, like, I can't remember which one it was, but one of the band members who left, like, whenever he joined, he told he said advice, he thought the music was cheesy,
Simon.
Was it Simon?
I think it was Simon.
I know Simon said it, but it was somebody else who also said, like, it's kind of cheesy. It's like, so, like, they didn't even really like the music. That's why they kind of, I think they were so easy to sell out the kind of rights to it. Because, like, in 2012, they're still, like, obviously you have, like, that moment, I think it was 2011, where you have, like, obviously you have, James Hetfield, saying on TV, I support Ghost, which is a huge thing, like, you have all these kind of industry behemoths, quite early on being like, Ghost is great, but that doesn't always equal back into money. You know what I mean? James Hetfield can say what band he likes, as much as he likes. Doesn't mean everyone that likes Metallica is suddenly going to go listen to Ghost. Or if they do,
exactly.
doesn't mean they're going to like them, So, like, in the long term, having all these big names saying they like Ghost, it was like, for them as well, and their own egos being like, oh, this is great, they like our band. And Tobias is like, our band?
We?
We? Who's we? Are we using, like, the royal we, or what? Like...
Which, the word we bites Tobe in the ass, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. That's why they could easily sell it out, because clearly they didn't have any emotional investment in the music they were playing. Because, like, if you listen to Priest is a very different band. It's more of industrial metal. Like, it goes down with, like, they tour with people like Combi Christ and stuff like that, and that's more industrial metal. It's nothing like Ghost. More electronic and stuff like that there. So that's why I feel like a lot of them felt it was so easy to be like, you know what? Yeah, this is your band. We don't want... Because, like, probably at that point didn't think it was going to become what it has become. Because, like I said, even though Ghost is not, like, the most successful metal band, hard rock, whatever, we're not getting into that. That's not what we're discussing. But anyway, like, metal band, they're not, like, one of the most successful metal bands on the planet. They are one of the most easily recognized. And they, like, people, like the amount of, like, riffs on their logo alone, like all of the t-shirts and stuff, that copy the Opus Eponymous thing, like with a cat or something, you know what I mean? Like, they again, they're not the most successful. They are successful, but they're not the most successful band in the world. But they are one of the most...
They've got an image that everyone just seems to recognize, whether you've listened to them or not.
Yeah, but also not even that there are, like, you see, like these lists and stuff, like greatest metal album, like metal songs of the, 2010s. Ghost will always be in there, and they'll always be quite high up. You know what I mean? Like, and there'll be multiple Ghost songs, on that list. Like, like, and Tobias will always be listed as, like, one of the best frontmen of a band. Like the media of metal, like music media loves them. Like Metal Hammer love them, Revolver love them, Metal Injection love them. Like, and people are like, stop writing about Ghost. I'm like, no.
No,
Never.
Here's our 5th Ghost article of the month. Fuck you. They haven't
you
even
don't
got
fucking
an album out.
close your eyes.
Oh, but yeah, talking about, like, the sort of name and image, in the end of sort of 2012 was obviously when all the whole Ghost BC debate started, because of, they started getting big in America, and then it was like, well, you can't have this name, blah blah blah. And then fucking Martin, right? I've put in an image here, if you can find my PowerPoint, of what Martin suggested, because he suggested just dropping the O, and it was like Gust, and like, but with the same logo, and it looks so dumb. I'm not gonna lie. And Tobe was like, actually, no. But yeah, it was a stressful time period.
Martin, but no.
But that whole time period was very stressful. If you go back and read the emails, it's like kind of really sad, because Tobe's just like, oh, the biggest, the album, no, sorry, he was like, the biggest album of my career is being delayed, and you're not taking me seriously. Blah. But he tried to reassure the ghouls that their salary is secured for at least another year, regardless of all the shit that's going on. So, like, the ghouls are fine. You've got your salary for another year. But Tobe's like, I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going to happen with my band.
But
you guys are fine. You guys are fine. Do what you're doing. I, on the other hand, am going to lose some hair. He doesn't. He has a great hairline because he's a good guy. like it is because like they changed labels. That's why it changed, because their label wasn't like, you can't have the copyright on the word ghost, because like obviously
Oh, yeah.
ghost stories, the actual just normal word of ghost, So the label was worried about the fact that the name was just ghost, because you can't copyright the word ghost. And he's just like, we've had no problem with this before, you guys. And they're like, well, we're
Americans.
Americans, so we have to make a problem. So like obviously that's where the BC came in, because like it's supposed to be a reference obviously to the Bible type thing, but he said it's before copyright. Bless him.
And because copyright, bless it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we go on to 23rd. I know that we're covering a lot of ground here that isn't even really lawsuit, like actual lawsuit happenings,
is.
but it's important that this is all that stuff that like caused it essentially. So bear with us. So yeah, we get into 2013 now, and it's oh, here's the bit you mentioned about the whole, we should get a tour bus even though we can only really afford a van, but we might not bring profit, but we'll look cool and we'll be like a bigger band.
Because like I think it was, I can't remember which, because I've never really been good with like the ghoul names. Like obviously I know Omega and Alpha because that's Simon and Martin, but like when it gets to Air and stuff like that, I don't know who any of them they are. But like Air Ghoul uploaded videos from like their very first tour. Like he uploaded them on Facebook. You can see that they have like a tiny little van that they're all in before one of the festival dates they did.
Yeah.
Like they're all cramped into this van. I'm just like, these, like, my God, like, can you imagine being cramped in a van with 6 men? I'd rather
Insufferable
walk.
men.
Yeah, I'd rather walk. I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, like the smell alone is, you know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be somebody being like, like, what do you mean the smell? Like, I'm just saying, like, men are stinky.
No, it is a thing. Like, believe me, like everyone romanticizes this whole thing. Especially, this is off topic. I've got into reading a lot recently, and I tried to find like rockstar romance novels, and it's all like he's got a 6-pack and showers, and it's okay. No, bros are sharing a tour bus. They don't shower for 2 weeks, and they're all stinking, and they're probably just playing PS5 in the back room. It's not as glamorous as you think. Believe me, I know a lot of music people.
Yeah, like
But,
it's just you can just also as well like I can understand the tour bus, like like the tour, cause like I need to not sleep cramped in the corner of a van, please.
A lot of 2013 was just basically like back and forward in between like the lawyers and trying to come up with some sort of salary agreement, things like that.
Still hadn't come up with the actual like legal agreement. You'd think at some point one of the lawyers would have went, we should maybe fill one of these in.
Then we get to like 20, a lot of just touring and general happenings happen. Obviously, Infestissimum is released, and then there's a bit debate about who showed up for what for that for an amount of time. But they're trying to claim that Tobe came for 2 out of the 6 weeks. I call bullshit, to be honest. Because
Actually,
that man,
I'm gonna come to their defense on this. He actually admitted he did actually was only there for a couple of weeks.
Oh, you fucking dickhead! I was rooting for you.
But the reason is because because of the amount of time that had taken to actually get the album recorded, because of all the debacle about the Ghost BC thing, he'd already recorded a version of the album.
Oh yes.
So whenever they got to recording the album properly, he didn't need to be there because they already had a huge like amount of groundwork.
Okay, so he was like, "You just do this."
He came in and did his vocals and stuff. And I think Simon was there. Like for once, I'm on Simon's side. He was there in the studio for a bit longer than him, but again, he was just in there to do, guitars and stuff like that there, and like he was trying to say that he was also one of the studio engineers on Infestism, but like I think he wasn't. Like they're all like, I don't know where he's getting this from. He recorded his bits, and he was there, but like he wasn't like we had because they were on a bigger label, they actually had a proper studio and stuff like that had, because I know they broke down about all the people that that are actually involved in recording an album. There's like, and they go through it in the actual court thing. There's like, you have like obviously the main sound engineer, then you have his assistants and stuff like that there. You have people that making sure everything is lined up. Simon was never any of those people. But like Simon would want you to believe that he was one of those people, but he wasn't. He was there to do his job, which was record guitar and maybe some bass, I think. But like he was in the studio a bit longer than Tobias for Infestism,
Okay.
Because Tobias did say, yeah, because I think he said it in court, like, yeah, I was only there for like 2 weeks, but I had already recorded the whole fucking album. Oh,
In also with in everyone's defense as well, like because Martin obviously played quite a bit of important role in sort of some of the Year Zero lyrics. That they you can see in a few emails they got that sorted out pretty quick with like royalties and shit.
yeah.
So at least that was sorted.
That's why I fully believe that, like, if they had put the work in, they said they did, he would be fully on board to credit them for it. Because I think what actually happened with Year Zero was, I think Martin came up with the idea for the song, and then Tobias wrote the lyrics and made the music for it.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee you what actually happened was, Martin came along with, like, the names of the demons, Belial, Behemoth, Beelzebub. That'd be so cool to put into a song. And Tobias was like, leave it with me. Came back, what about this? Oh my god, and then he's like, give you credit. So that's why I feel like if they had actually put effort in to doing stuff
He'd
like
have-
that, he would have given them the credit for it, because he still to this day was like,
Martin came up with this idea.
Yeah, it's like he just came up with a list of names, bro. I'm just guessing, but that feels like that's the kind of thing, or maybe like they watched Rosemary's Baby, like Year Zero. Oh, that'd be a cool name for a song. Leave it with me.
Say no more. Oh god.
There was also actually quite interesting thing in the lawsuit. I don't know at what point we'll bring that up, but I just want to bring up, because just talking about like inputting ideas. There was that thing like on the tour bus, like if you're jamming on the tour bus, Tobias owns it.
Yeah.
Because it will end up going into a ghost song. But I will say no, because see, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're in a band and if jamming with the guy that writes the music, like I don't think it's if they're jamming personally, he owns that. But I think it's like if you're jamming with him and like, something comes from it, it's his.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's like, if that's fair, you know what I mean? Like, but like I think that it wasn't like if you're just sitting on the bus jamming by yourselves and he's not there, he owns it, even though he didn't hear it. Like it's more like if he's in there jamming and you're all jamming together, he owns it, because he's gonna write the song. You aren't.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I mean, you can if you want. It's right there. Nah.
Yeah, 2014 was fairly diplomatic. We had a few people leave. Rickard leaves, Linton joins. In November, Asko leaves, Martin H joins. So one of the future plaintiffs comes in, but a fairly quiet year. This was apparently the year that Morrow. So it was Morrow who said about. Oh yeah, it's great. He said this to Nils, by the way. He said, "Yeah, Tobias can come in and do all the work, and we can just sort of fuck around and goof off." So this was even back in 2014, and he sort of came to that idea.
Yeah, they were like backstage at a show, and he's like, how does this even work? And Martin's like, well, we don't work. That's the whole point. Because I feel like, again, like these guys, I feel like don't really fully understand the amount of work that goes into a band. Really, now they do. But like at the time, I feel like they were just like, oh yeah, he's sorting out, costumes, instruments. Because like as well, another thing I think people don't realize as well is for instruments and stuff, you can get sponsored by instrument companies, and that means then you don't have to pay for guitars and stuff yourself. You rent them basically from the company, and it's more for the fact that like music fans will look at the band that they like and go, what guitar is he using, what pedals is he using, what stuff like that there, and then they'll want to go buy them. It's that kind of like, it's free advertising, because like we even know with Ghost itself, it's what is it, the guitar they use?
It's Hagstrom I've got one.
Yeah,
I should fucking know it, but it's Hagstrom anyway.
Yeah, you see, like that's why. That's exactly. See, that's the point. Now you own one because they have them on stage. Yeah, but it's like they get like that has to all be discussed. You know what I mean? And lawyers have to be brought in and things like. I feel like people don't fully like once you start getting once a band goes from being just people fucking around to an actual machine
business almost.
Yeah, like a business, a business machine, like where people are like the second lawyers have to come into your band, It completely changes. Yeah, it completely it's no longer just people fucking around. But the ghouls seem to not, because obviously they weren't doing all that. They were just like, nah, we're just fucking around. Lawyer, what's that? Yeah, it's
Never
like,
heard
well,
of
you will
it.
find out what a lawyer is, my guy. I think whenever I started looking into ghosts, when I found out all the work that he does in this band, that what made me genuinely so impressed by him, because like, Jesus Christ, I couldn't. like coming up with all the tours, because you have to get people. Obviously he wasn't like personally contacted, and that's what tour managers are for. Tour companies are for. They'll contact all these people, and again, there's more lawyers involved. Merchandising, then you have to have lawyers involved with that. It's just like he's just sitting being the head of this little business empire quite straight away. He's the stress. Meanwhile, they're still saying, "Oh yeah, we're totally have the same amount of input into this band as he does."
But yeah, and then we get into 2015. Linton's left. He was here for 5 minutes.
Bye.
Henrik Palm joins. So the reason Henrik joined was because he was hired as a studio musician for Meliora, but Tobe was so impressed with him. He's like, I like you. Let's bring you out on the road. It's a lot of honestly, a lot of this is just a lot of emails you have to read. The thing that sort of fucks things up was when they were going to tour in the States one time. There was a problem with getting some of the visas. So obviously you need to get a visa to go on tour. So Kristen, in panic, sent a letter to the US embassy being like, hello, Henrik is a very crucial member of the band Ghosts. Like, can you please let him in? Obviously in more legalese terms.
Yeah.
But this comes to bite them in the ass, because Henrik was like, I'm an important member? Really? I must be like a full-time member.
I don't really think it's not that it really bit him in the ass. It's just it's one of the pieces of evidence they had that was like, see, they're saying that we're important, so clearly.
Yeah, exactly. That's
but it's
kind
like,
of
you would also say that about the sound guy. He's important. He's a crucial member of the touring band. Like the tour whatever crew.
Yeah, that's exactly what Kristen said later in court, which we'll get to once we get to her. Like, but that was her debate. But
because they didn't actually have a lot of evidence on their side. Because like, it's really funny whenever you actually get into the actual court thing about what they like, their amount of evidence they had compared to what his lawyer came in with.
Oh yeah, fucking hell! The
Beautiful.
118-page fucking article. I loved it. We'll get onto that though. But yeah, so it was just a lot of like filling in the new members on how to invoice, yada yada yada. You can see there's been a proof of payment for the Stephen Colbert show. Was it for Simon that this proof of
Simon
payment
got
happened?
that.
Yeah, so you can see that, even though they claimed that they didn't. But right there, black and white. Right, so
also as well mentioned as well that Henrik was told like the rest of the band to invoice for £900 British pounds, because we're British, but £900 a month. That was their pay a month.
It is low. I will give them that.
Yeah, it's low, but they were also getting that when they weren't on tour.
Yeah.
Which is like, you're getting like £900 a month for nothing.
But I digress. We finally get on to 2016, and this is where everything fucking kicks off. So apparently, the whole reason this whole damn lawsuit started, according to Simon, was because at the Wilton show that he did in LA, that was meant to be filmed for a DVD. So that was going to be like there, right here, right now. But I think that was when everyone was like, "Hey, what are we getting for contributing to this?" And then, there was a lot of discussions of like contracts and things like that, like what was gonna be going down, and just what their roles were within the band and what payments. Now this really makes me sad. So the first thing I've got written down was this was on the 8th of April, and the only reason I'm saying this, because I know we're not here to pry into like Tobe's personal life, but it just makes me sad that this happened on his wedding day. So on Tobe's wedding day on the 8th of April 2016, he's meant to be going out and living one of the happiest days of his life, and then he's getting like told that, oh shit, there's some shit going down with the contracts of my band, because the Ghouls got sent a draft contract.
Yeah.
Where it says, in the April, this was a quote from Michael Berg, in the April something strange happened. The band members got a contract proposal that they would be employed. They were upset because it was nothing they had agreed at all. All band members confronted Forge, and the message they received where he was not behind the agreement and that he had no involvement with the employment contract, but it was handled by a third party. After this conflict, Tobias Forge continued the USA tour without the other band members, but with other people in the band. The members are not happy as the draft makes. Oh, fucking hell!
Yeah.
What is going on? Sorry, my head's just
It's all right.
fried. Yeah, basically, the Ghouls got this draft in April 2016. Apparently, Tobe was like, I don't know nothing about it, so naturally they didn't sign it. But we'll get onto this later because this gets brought up in the lawsuit court days quite a lot.
It's just the thing is, like none of them, including Tobias, clearly doesn't understand what a draft means.
Yeah,
You know, like it's like, what is this? Oh, I don't know. I didn't come up with it. And then it's Kristen's like, fuck me. You know, like
not my idea. Yeah, and then in July, Martin leaves for. We still don't really know the reasons. There was apparently just a lot of beef and a lot of like, we want to kick him out, okay. And then a lot of, I think Martin came on to say there was a lot of personal struggles.
yeah, he said he wasn't
Yeah.
having fun anymore or something in an interview, didn't he?
Something like that, yeah.
Like, it wasn't fun anymore. That's what it was. Like there was just a
Yeah.
lot, like you said, like a lot of personal issues and stuff, like with Martin and with the band and stuff. So bye,
Yeah.
Martin.
But and I think a lot of people seem to think that it was just Tobe and Martin clashing. Apparently, a lot of people were clashing with Martin at the time, so they all kind of agreed, like, yeah, he can, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it wasn't until the September where they finally got another draft sent to them, and this one included a bonus system, but also had a limitation of concerts performed because Tobe was like, "Look, I can't keep paying you all this money because I've got all these plans, and for me to carry out these plans so that you have a job until like 2018, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all need to agree on this sort of thing." And then Martin says in an email though, yeah, this looks great, but then sort of not when I say Martin, sorry, Martin H was like, yeah, this looks great.
Idiots.
I'll take that back in 5 minutes. And then the proposed contract wasn't sent out until the November. A new agreement was signed, and then suddenly 3 days later, they're gone. I think when me and you discussed this, Alana, you had a better insight into what happened here. 'Cause
Yeah,
wasn't
well,
it like?
basically,
Please explain.
basically, the agreement was sent out that they would be paid. Like this happened during a tour. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like we'll get into it in the court and stuff. But they were like they had been shown the original draft agreement, which Kristen had explained to Tobias because Tobias had said this. This has nothing to do with me. I'll get in contact with Kristen and find out. Kristen basically explained then to Tobias that a draft contract is basically you don't promise them the stars and the moon and the stars straight away. It's supposed to be a kind of back and forth. Like this is the baseline contract. We will then discuss between us, ups and to move things up or down or whatever, And Tobias was like, "Oh, that makes sense," but they weren't happy about it because it was the first proper. I think the first proper contract that kind of fully stated that they were, paid musicians,
Yeah.
and that this was Tobias's band and they were paid musicians because they weren't going to get any. I think it was because of the live show that was going to end up on the DVD. They weren't going to get royalties from that the same way that Tobias would get royalties from it. They would be paid for the show that they did, but they would not make money from the DVD.
Right.
And so like again, this is during the tour. This is happening. And so they started to try and like shut Tobias out. Like they were, they basically tried to freeze him out to make him desperate to then come up with a better contract.
Yeah.
Clearly they didn't understand how petty this man is. And I love it. I'm also a petty bitch. I'm fully supportive of it. But they basically came to an agreement that they would be paid a lump sum to finish the tour.
Oh yeah, wasn't it like a weird incentive?
Yeah, it was like an incentive.
Being paid to do your job.
Yeah, I have on list of the numbers they were paid. Basically, they kind of made Tobias made a counter proposal for an agreement, which was finally made on November 9th. The agreement regulated that the plaintiff's assignments under the remaining period of the autumn tour until November 12th, 2016. In the deal, all the plaintiffs received a fee which amounted to a significantly higher amount than the individual compensation which had been accepted by the musicians after the meeting in Solna. And that's Appendix 30. So basically, Henrik Palm would get $14,728. And again, this is from the 9th to the 12th. This is what they're being paid for. Yeah.
Jesus
so
Christ.
$14,728. Simon got $14,981. MR, I can't remember who that is. got
Mario
yeah,
Rubino, whatever.
yeah. He got $14,930, and then Martin H got $15,675. And the reason he got more than the others is because of he was teaching Megan to
Yeah.
do the songs, because he said like, well, seeing as I'm teaching her, I should get more money. And like even before this whole kind of contract blew up, he was getting more money than them because he was teaching her the music, because
Yeah.
that was for 3 days work that they got paid to finish the tour. They were all given at least 15 grand each.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What they'd already been paid for the tour?
Yeah, they were, and that's exactly, they were on top of what they had already been getting from month to month,
Hmm.
So they were getting like £900 a month, or whatever that is in dollars, like $1,000 or whatever dollars a month. They were getting that a month, and then to basically just to get them to finish the tour, because they were like striking at this point, like, because this isn't, again, in the lot, like, you hear it in the court thing, but like they'd get to a venue and then piss off, and they wouldn't do the sound checks.
Tobe didn't know if they were going to show up.
Yeah, and like that puts him in a spot, because if he cancels the night of, he owes money to the venue. Yeah, he's fined by the venue, because they've had to basically make this spot empty for them where they could put somebody else in.
Yeah. God, imagine the stress.
Yeah, so like they're doing this to, like, and again, this is why I personally can't, like, this is why I personally can't feel sorry for them. This is why I personally can't like support their own projects, because I was like, this is shitty. There was a better way of handling this, and he's picked the most shitty way of doing it, because like you're supposed to care about this band, yet you're risking it all for money. And again, this like they were fine with this setup until Meliora came out, and then obviously they got the Grammy. They were getting more successful. The shows were getting bigger. They were playing bigger, kind of like, they weren't in arenas at that point just yet, but they were playing bigger venues. They were getting on again. They got on to Stephen Colbert, which is massive for a band like Ghost. Because they got on the Halloween special that he did. Yeah, which again is like, it's a massive advertising for them. Yeah. Because like fast forward again, like to Impera, and they did Jimmy Kimmel, and that's how I found them, because through them doing Call Me Little Sunshine on Jimmy Kimmel. So like these all kind of like all this kind of exposure adds up, and then obviously they're getting more and more successful. So suddenly there's actually money coming into the band, because this is whenever Tobias said he was actually making a profit from Ghost.
Yeah.
Like whenever Meliora came out, that's when profit started to actually come in. Because he was like, up until Meliora, they were in the red for the actual. Because like again, all the money was coming in, and he's putting it back into shows. But he was managing to put stuff into the shows, but actually have enough left over where it was a profit. It's like, sweet, the goal that you want, you've reached it. And then these guys are like, why have you got more money than us? Because what? Hello?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm doing all the work. You guys are enjoying your fucking off and going and doing nothing all day.
Yeah.
It's just how businesses, like, as much as I'd rather earn the same amount of money as my boss, I understand that he does a lot more than me.
Yeah.
Just basic business. Well, question mark, but I'm not going to publicly state that. But yeah, it's just like, what was funny as well was like after like a few weeks, they were like, they sent an email out being like, yeah, can we get guest lists for these shows, for our friends and family? And the lawyers were like, you're not in the band anymore. Like,
it's
like,
a beautiful email. Yeah, it says during November, Ghost tour manager George Davison was. What I'm reading from, by the way, is Tobias's rebuttal to their countersuit.
Yeah,
this is why I'm currently. If you're wondering where, I'm just not like eloquently coming up with this. It says during November, like this is after they'd done like, to November 12th. It says during November, Ghost tour manager George Davison was contacted by them as musicians to announce their names to the guest list for the sold out Stockholm concert on April 28th, 2017. Sissy Halgood. Halgood? Is that how you pronounce that?
Oh, Sissy Halgood. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Couldn't be.
Sissy Halgood was instructed by Tobias Forge to announce to the plaintiff's representatives that no further involvement was relevant and that the guest list was not available to the candidates. Sissy Halgood appealed in writing to the plaintiff's lawyer, As there seems to be confusion about their commitment, I would like to clarify that by your email on October 14th, 2016, it informed me that the principals did not accept the offer that had been submitted. My principal has also not accepted any counterbid. Why it should be made clear to your principals that an agreement regarding their commitment as musicians in Ghost does not exist. It should also clarify for them that they will not be considered for further engagements as my principal does not intend once more to be extorted during future tours.
Yeah, basically, don't blackmail Tobias anymore. Like,
Yeah,
fuck
you
off.
you publicly blackmailed Tobias Forge during a tour. He doesn't want that to happen again. Go away. Because they sent an email out basically saying that, like, because like the whole thing is like they were replaced and kind of like they got to the end of their contract
Yeah.
and then didn't sign any other contract after that, and then
Yeah.
were surprised that they weren't back in the band.
It's almost like a real job contract.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what? When you don't sign your contract, you don't have a job anymore?
It's like you act like a dick. You were acting like a dick. You proved yourself unreliable. You tried to literally extort him by like holding you because like it's like a strike in a way, but in the same sense that they were getting paid. They weren't just getting paid more than they wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like he said himself in that original quote, you play people all the time, even when they're not working. When they start working, they're gonna want more money.
Yeah.
Like I'm making this while I'm not working. I feel like I should be making more while I am actually working. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, so like again, it's on him for not sorting out this personal companionship or whatever agreement, early on. But but in his defense, they had paid themselves out in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had been paid for their mental shares almost, back in 2012. So in his mind, this shit's sorted. So
Yeah.
like now that they're making money, they're like, oh, actually, it's not. And he's like, huh?
Well.
Excuse me. Martin wasn't actually our liaison for the ghouls. It's like, huh? But you all agreed and you all got paid. What are you on about? You can't suddenly not be your liaison because you don't like what you all agreed to.
Because you're sad about it now doesn't mean you didn't agree to it then.
Yeah.
Not what I signed up for.
Yeah, you fucked around. You didn't have faith in the band. You just wanted to kind of cruise along on your, like can't get dragged along by Tobias's coattails. And whenever he suddenly decides he wants to take the coat off, you're sad because you're like, hang on a minute, no.
2 of you have been here for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's also another thing. That's so stupid that the fact that they even got into a court in the first place. For like, because one of them say that he came up with like a thing in Cerise?
Yeah, because he played it wrong.
Yeah, like fuck off.
You want a 6 of the share even though you've been here for 5 minutes. Fuck off.
He's like, I helped write Cerise, and Tobias was like, you played a note wrong. You didn't write shit. Like, go away. You don't get a writing credit.
It's so like also convenient that it's the one that got the Grammy. Like you didn't help write any of the other songs off of the album. It's Cerise, the Grammy winning song. That's very convenient. That's a lot of conveniences. Like oh that's convenient.
So
But
interesting.
yeah, they got paid 15 grand for 3 days' work to basically plead with them to finish the tour. Because he could not have at that time, like if he could have replaced them on the 9th, he would have replaced them on the 9th, but he couldn't because they had commitments for 3 days. So they basically kind of almost paid like a ransom fee to get Ghost to be able to finish the tour. And then they were surprised that they couldn't get like onto the guest list because they didn't sign the contract. Also, shout out to George for letting everybody know. George is like, Tobias, these guys are like messaging me about getting on the set list, and he's like, tell them to go fuck themselves. I was like, I don't think I can tell them that. But yeah, he then replaced everybody with the kind of like he replaced all of the idiots with new people.
More idiots.
More idiots.
Idiots.
Yeah, they got through the new tour with the new lineup, and I will be completely honest, new lineup sounds better.
Yeah.
And also, like, the energy on stage completely changed, you know? Because, like, one of the
Yeah.
sad things is, if you ever go back and look at videos from from, like, April 2016 to, like, the end of that tour, November 2016, if you look at, like, videos from on stage, you can see a lot of things going on stage. Like, at the time, you probably wouldn't have noticed, but you can notice them now. Like, there's bits where he'll, like, go over to kind of interact with one of the girls, and they'll, like, turn away from him and, like, walk
Yeah.
towards one of the other girls instead. Like, he was on
Shitty.
stage trying to interact with the girls and stuff, like the way they had the stage set up, and they would kind of do it, but, like, a lot of times they would just walk away from him. And they were putting in minimal effort on stage as well. Like, they weren't, they were kind of just standing still, or, kind of grooving out a little bit, but they weren't putting in the effort that, they had been putting in, because they were trying to hold the band ransom, basically,
Yeah.
And then you get,
Such a
the
shit
new
show.
people who are what do you call him?
Ben Christo?
Yeah, he's great.
He was
I miss,
great.
I miss
I miss
him.
him.
Yeah.
Bring back Ben, please.
That's the costume fit him so nice. Like that man's chest was amazing in that Ghoul costume, 100%. And also as well, whenever Tobe's doing the absolution scream, there's that wonderful video of him, like, jumping back and, like, pointing at him, going, "Yeah, look at him go!" Like, I love that. That's amazing. You know what I mean? But, like, even people were saying and stuff, like, the energy completely changed, and, like, the guy, you can clearly see that the ghouls that are on stage after the fact, like, after these guys got fired, like, they love being there.
Yeah.
Like,
You
everybody.
can tell they're into it. Like, they're into the music, they're into the vibes. Like, they
Yeah.
want to be there.
And it's such a drastic change, and it's for the better. Like, 100%. Like, the ghouls that he has, like, even the ghouls he has now, they want to be there. They love being there, and it's great compared to, like, if you look at them before, where they probably didn't like the music, and they were like, "Sure, whatever, I'm playing this."
But yeah, so this is where all the actual, like, lawsuit kicks off, as in, like, the proceedings and the legal stuff. So it was in the December of 2016 where, they started getting in contact with their lawyers and their agents, and they was like, right, we want to prove that Ghost was a single company rather than, employment via Tobias Forge. And then during April of 2017, that's when the notice is served. He was only given a day to reply, which was not fucking fair.
Yeah.
No,
I
what
think we
the
need to discuss this.
Yeah, they served it to him on a Friday,
Yeah.
and, like, courts are closed, I think, on weekends, so he would have only had the Monday to, because, like, I think it was, like, the 30th he had to, by the 30th of April, and if you
Yeah.
look over it, he was served on, like, the Friday. Saturday, Sunday he couldn't have done it, so he would have only had the Monday. I think what they were trying to do was they were trying to shake him for money. Like, they expected him to not actually go to court,
Yeah, and just pay outside.
Yeah, because I think the last piece of, like, because the way I've always looked at this lawsuit is the last thing that they had on him was the anonymity,
Yeah.
and this court case threatened that,
Yeah.
So they thought, he's not going to want the anonymity thing to break, so he'll just pay us out. We'll get some money from this,
I think not.
And I do, I'm really proud of him for fighting it, because, like, because if he just paid out of court, there would always been that shadow over it that, like, maybe they were right, maybe they were owed that money, maybe he did, like, fuck them out of, lots of money or whatever,
Yeah, it makes him look more guilty than.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, weird comparison, but it's like, the only comparison I can think of is Michael Jackson. Whenever he paid out of court because of the, the child, the child saying that he sexually assaulted the child, he paid out of court, and so there was always this thing over him of, like, why did he pay out of court if he didn't do it, I'm not gonna talk about Michael Jackson, but you know what I mean. Like, that's the only one that could come to mind,
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have been that hanging over the band, and he probably didn't want that, But I always felt like the lawsuit was them, because if you listen to a lot of interviews, kind of, even from, like, early in the band, he talks about, like, he's not stupid, but he knows that there's an ego in going on stage with a guitar or whatever. You want people to know who you are, but he liked having the anonymity because it meant that he could then take Ghost off and then just go hang out with his family and nobody
not
would
be
bother
anonymous.
him. Like, because like they never like, because the thing with the anonymity, it was never as like stringently, cloak held, over as much as people think. Because they were meeting people after the show at the bus. Like
Yeah.
fans met them at the bus for years. Like during Opus, during Infestism, during Meliora, like before the names ever became public. But fans were like, clearly they don't want people knowing who they are. So like, we're not going to talk about it. They didn't take pictures with them. They got stuff signed. When he signed stuff off, he was Papa 3 or Papa 2 or whatever. But like, they weren't like going onto the tour bus with people holding sheets over them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They Tob quite often said, because I've been transcribing a load of old interviews, and so many times it came up him saying there's a difference between being an anonymous band and being a masked band.
Mm-hmm.
So the anonymity thing didn't actually seem as big of a deal as I think people make it, like you say, as people think.
Yeah.
So I think when this happened, he was like, "Yeah, bring it. Let's go,
Yeah.
girls."
I also but I also feel like they also didn't realize that,
Yeah.
because he had talked about a lot of the other band members wanting to be known,
Yeah.
like you did say there are people in the band who want to be known because they felt like they weren't, because they said they weren't getting the recognition that they felt like they deserved. Meanwhile, Tobias Forge, who's writing all this shit, doing all of this stuff, actually being the one who gets all the recognition, is like, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what? I'm chill with it. I'm cool. You know what I mean? So like, they also took the kind of anonymity thing a bit
Way too
like
serious.
they thought he took it a little more seriously than he did. He's like, yeah, it's gonna suck that people are gonna know who I am, but I'm not gonna let you hold this band hostage again. I'm not gonna let you hold this image hostage again. Like, I'm not gonna let you do this. Like I guess it feels like, anyway. I can't obviously, like he's talked about the fact that he's like, there's that radio interview that he did where he's like, this is my fucking band.
Yeah.
Because like there was a period of like, now, like after the fact, like once 2018 and 2019 and all started rolling around, he did start looking back on it a bit more calm, like a bit more calmly, a bit more relaxed, once it passed. But like during the time, he was quite angry. Like there was a period of time where he was doing interviews where he seemed a bit, there was an anger to it, and then there was also that bit of like that big massive Sweden Rock interview. There was times where he said you could see that he was, clearly a bit pummeled by it, So like it was hard on him, but like obviously, like I said, like he's out of it now. He's he's the one laughing about it now. He can laugh about it now.
Wasn't it in that Sweden Rock interview? It was like, where the interview was like, you've got this court date on such and such. He's like, have I?
That's great. Like,
he forgot.
I think it's really great. I think somebody said, I think because I posted about it on Twitter, and somebody I think quoted it and said, clearly then the album did help, clear all those kind of feelings he must have been having if he just completely forgot about it. Like the kind of getting into work and getting down and doing all the work, and because like they had recorded the music video for Rats. They were kind of like, they couldn't set up any tour dates obviously because of the lawsuit, but he had some dates for things, like, because obviously they did the Royal Albert Hall and stuff like that there, and Rats did really well for him whenever he released it. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, sorry, but yeah, like he clearly they clearly underestimated how much of a fight he'd put up.
Yeah.
Because like I think they probably thought, oh, he want to keep the anonymity, so we'll just we'll rush him into it.
Going back quickly, when
Yeah.
he was served in April 2017, was he on tour then?
Yes, he was.
Like, because I think I was gonna say, like, I think I don't know how he managed to get away with leaving this till May, but he finally submitted a reply in the May asking basically for a delay, and he needed more time because obviously he's on tour. And then he didn't reply until the 7th of June 2017, which he submitted this 118-page document being like, actually, no. It was beautiful. Stunning. So petty and stunning. I bear in mind, we read all of it. We read the whole thing.
On this document, it says Tobias Forge immediately engaged new musicians so that the forthcoming tour that was due to start in March 2017 could be done. On March 30th, 2017, late in the afternoon, the plaintiff's lawyer sent an application for a summons, stating that it would be filed on April 3rd, 2017. The plaintiff's lawyer accordingly stated, attached is a draft application for a summons, which will be submitted to Linköping District Court no later than Monday, April 3rd, 2017, in case Tobias wants to come back with a reasonable extrajudicial solution proposals will be welcomed no later than Monday 3rd, Monday, April 3rd, 2017. Beresford was thus not given a reasonable amount of time for consideration to assess the plaintiff's actions and assess the correctness of the claim. From the Swedish Bar Association's ethical rules, the procedure is reprehensible.
Basically, the fuck.
Yeah, like he was like, yeah, March 30th, 3 days, like 3 or 4 days, you know, and that's
Go through
insane.
like 6 years worth of a career,
Yeah,
gather up all your evidence, and come up with an argument. Nah.
and while on tour.
Yeah, nah. Nah.
Yeah.
God, those
they
tour
were
girls probably
clearly-
heard some fucking shouting and yelling during that time. I'm telling you.
You what? They want
It's like
what?
It's like that. It's like that little thing in The Simpsons. Whenever Homer comes in, Marge, there's a spider by my car keys, and they're like standing like listening to him like shouting about it, like oh looking around the wall. That's all I can think in my head. But yeah, it's fucking shitty that they did that. Like that's so shitty.
So shitty. He then replies further on the 16th of August 2017. Basically, what the argument was the ghouls are asking to see the financial records, just to see where all the money was going, basically, and Tobe's refusing, but doesn't mind showing parts of it as long as he knows what exactly they're being used for. But the problem is as well with a lot of like the earlier stuff, they were like, we want to see the financial records. It's like, funny that there was no money, so they're not on record. You can't like invoice £0.
They can't like open a blank page and just kind of like doing that thing where you kind of shake it a little bit, like there you go, here's the invoice.
Dust.
2014, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of backward and forwarding of like replies and inserting evidence and stuff.
Yeah.
And then in the November 2017, they had a small meeting in court. I think it was like this was like a thing where it was like seeing if they could come to any sort of out of court agreements before it got taken to big court. And then we go into 2018. The ghouls submit a final summary, just basically it's a big list of basically why they're suing. Oh, sorry, I got a bit ahead of myself. So Tobias compiles the 118-page document on the 14th of May 2018, so almost a year later.
That's how much
Really
time
makes-
he needed.
Yeah, it really makes you think like, shit, this went on for a long time.
Yeah.
And then we finally had the court hearing, sorry, which I'll get into in a second, but just to round up what happened in the rest of 2018. The verdict was made, spoiler alert, Tobe won, and then in the November, an appeal was made. So,
can I talk about a quick second? Because we're talking about this, like the summary, like what the ghouls were actually suing him for. Like they wanted like $20,000 or something.
yeah.
And like you think to yourself, you got paid that before you left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ordered him for like what? That's what.
Spoiler alert: they lose for a lot more. You know what I mean? Like, but it's insane. Like that's like, and then they were also like saying if he doesn't show the books, they want like a fine on him and stuff as well for not showing the books. And you're like, huh? You know, like again, like I'm not saying that they aren't within their rights to see the books, because like if you're part of a business, you do have the right to ask to see the books. You know, to see where the money's going. You know, but like at that point they weren't in the business anymore.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a lawyer. Like, I don't know. Obviously, like they probably, even after not being in the business anymore, still had the right to ask to see during their time period within the business. They want to see the books, you know. But like, if they were so invested in the band to get 1/6 of everything that was going on as well, because like the 20,000 was like I think the baseline that they asked for, and I think they had said they had agreed for 1/6 in some magical meeting that happened back in 2011 that nobody wrote notes for.
Yeah.
It's just it's insane. Like it's just the actual lawsuit itself. Like it feels like they have a shit lawyer, because clearly it's like you can't really ask for this kind of stuff without evidence.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't have any evidence, because if you read their lawsuit is 12 pages.
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me. A lot of it is like hearsay, and Simon said, you know. But like it is Simon saying that he did all these things, you know. But yeah, like their lawsuit's only 12 pages. They have like because I've read that too. Because like one of the things is like this is one of the things, and it says Regarding the name and trademark for Ghost, the plaintiffs note that there is no exclusive right based on the trademark registration. Exclusive rights to trademark, however, could exist by the band members' use of trademark. Just like the band members have shared rights for the music recordings, the rights to the trademark Ghost is shared since the partners have agreed to commercially exploit the trademark, the trademark together for the chosen company. And it's like, and I could be a bike if I had wheels. That doesn't mean I am. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as I said as well, like the plaintiffs and Tobias Forge have not entered into an agreement whereby Tobias Forge has acquired the plaintiff's intellectual property rights relative to the activities of Ghost from the plaintiffs acting on the common commercial purposes. So that's them trying to be like, he didn't buy out our interest in Ghost. Flashback to 2012 when they sold out their interest in Ghost.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and like they were trying to say as well, like another thing is like they tried to say like regarding the commercial exploitation of the band Ghost selling T-shirts and other merchandise mostly has been done at band's concerts. The concerts that the plaintiffs and Tobias Forge performed thus have not only resulted in ticket revenue but merchandise revenue. So that's them also trying to get money from things, you know, like from like T-shirts and whatever being sold. It's like, so do you want money from the concession stand?
Didn't they say, because like basically in their original agreement it said like, you know, you're gonna get money to play, pretty much nothing else. You're
Yeah.
not gonna get paid for interviews, etc. But then when they did an interview, they tried to be like, well, this interview was done at a concert, so technically it comes part of the live show, so can we not get paid for the interview too? Like there's so
No.
many little things like that.
Yeah, but it's like when I was looking at it, like it's like, why don't you argue for, you know, how many hot dogs are sold the days of the concerts, how much beer was sold, if you're going by that kind of mindset. You know, like I know I'm being like you know, hyperbolic or whatever, you know, or whatever. I'm taking it to extreme levels, but I just find it's like the mindset that they're coming in with this lawsuit of being like, well, we were on stage together when music was played, so therefore we have 1/6 share in Ghost.
Yeah.
No.
So talking about Tobe's reply, the 118-page document, it is a lot to read. So I wrote down a few notes that I'm gonna speed run through. I might try and explain a few of these, but I'm just gonna read them out first. Of some of the main things I've wrote down. So one of the main things I've highlighted was none of the plaintiffs were present or engaged at the time of the formation. That's a big thing. Simon was to be paid as the others, with the addition of renting a studio, and he was. The respective plaintiffs had only the task of performing and executing the musical works. They were prepaid as a way to make sure that they would perform, which is dumb. Imagine me getting paid in advance of my salary just to make sure I do my job.
Yeah.
That makes no
So you
sense.
come in to do your work. Like here's a tenner.
Yeah.
Come in.
Yeah, I know that's how bonuses work, but I
Yeah.
digress. None of them took the risks and losses, etc., like Sven's drama pop. The operations of Ghost have been financed only by Tobias's income. None of the plaintiffs acquired any common rights to the trademark. Simon had no input over the MySpace demos nor signed with Rise Above. Simon took this is basically where he went down every single member and just slated all of them one by one. So I'm on Simon right now.
Yeah, it's hilariously funny.
Simon never made any investments. Simon and Marino have never paid Rick Sales commission. Henrik and Martin H accepted their musician for hire in the terms in the 2016 documents. Tobias is responsible for arranging everything except for Zenith and Year Zero for every song. There was no room for self-interpretation on any songs. Until 2017, Tobias took no salary from the revenues relating to concerts or the sale of merch, only the revenues from Opus Eponymous. And this is most likely due to being released from Rise Above, because it's one of the albums that he's the sole owner of on Rise Above, whereas the rest were on Universal and Loma Vista. Tobias asked the bandmates questions the same way a regular company would with their employees. Tobias bought all the instruments. He just reiterates in the thing that it was a matter of urgency, not like efficiency or professionality. Tobe already had doubts that Simon would commit long term in the future, as Simon played hardcore music and it wasn't his thing, like we've said. 3 of the plaintiffs did not perform in 2010. All the costumes were bought by Tobias. Tobias had to invest in some of the income to fund the Inflames tour, spend money to make money, etc.
Yeah.
We've mentioned about the 20% commission. In 2011, Ghost did not earn more than 20,000 Swedish krona per gig, so around $2,000 basically. So if you're splitting that between however many members,
There's no
maths,
point. Yeah.
it's not a lot. So while I'm just remembering, I'll go on to this later. But why? if you think about it, Tobe also had to pay like all the crew members, and all of
Mhm.
them seemed happy with their salary. But I'll get back to that in a second.
I think they were being paid
Um,
as well through the record label.
Ye.
Sort
Yes
of,
and no.
yeah,
Sort of, just from things I know. So this is from his reply again. So it says Tobias Forge did not want to act as a goalkeeper for a company where the other musicians would own a share but not take no responsibility.
fair.
The bonuses were used as a carrot brackets in the music industry as an incentive to stay. So they were given an allowance of round about 200 to 3, but basically about £30 a day. And this was to be just an allowance for whatnot. And Tobias Forge would also reimburse for food, transport, etc., plus whatever the gig fees were. So, they were paid, just to survive on tour as well.
Yeah, but that like the little allowance was basically on top of what they were being paid on their like actual salary. Like the £30 a day was to
Yeah,
basically if they wanted to buy snacks, if they needed to buy,
exactly.
shampoo.
Pocket money.
Yeah, pocket money. That's why I called allowance. Daddy said I can go buy all the candy I like.
But there was also like this thing where like instead of invoicing Sven's Drum Pop, they needed to invoice Universal, but this was going to fuck them up with the USA tax system because Infestissima was recorded in the USA and the Ghouls were obviously not USA tax registered. So Tobias paid them via Sweden and then reimbursed Universal himself
Yeah.
for the tax. So he basically covered their tax at one point, apparently. Oh, this was funny. He offered to pay 6 hours of legal advice for the Ghouls early on, just to be like, here, have a Christmas present. Here's some legal advice, just to make sure we're doing things correctly. What happened there?
It's like, nah, we're all right.
Apparently, Simon only performed on 3 Meliora songs.
Yeah.
I made a question mark here. I said, if Simon wants royalties for playing on If You Have Ghosts, why didn't Dave Grohl? Because he... Dave Grohl. Because, Dave performed on it, but is Dave Grohl getting royalties from it?
Yeah, he probably would get royalties, I can imagine. Or he would get... I can imagine I don't know if... I said that very confidently, and then but actually... I think he would get paid as a producer.
But that's what I mean. He's getting paid just that, not as a performer.
He also has, like... he doesn't really need the royalties from it, because, like, he didn't write the songs. Like, he probably got paid as a session drummer as well,
But the thing is, Simon wants money for If You Have Ghosts too, but he also didn't write the songs.
Yeah.
Neither did Tobe. A lot of question marks.
It's because they like I said, like they feel like I feel like they have a bad lawyer,
Yeah.
They just went with I can imagine they just went to, like Googled lawyer near me and found a guy,
They saved that 6 hours worth of lawyer time and picked the one that they could get the most time with.
Basically, Tobe's reply is just like everything we've covered so far in a document form. Just everything that's led up to today. Well, not today is in today, but today is in 2018. A lot more work. It's also funny when you read it because you can tell like he's sat with this lawyer because it's almost written. It's almost as if he's written it and there's just some person's just added the legalese, being like, "Yep, this is the law." Blah blah blah. Because it's just like he does not feel like this and he's this and
yeah.
and some of it's like rock and roll is supposed to be this, and I'm like, yeah, a lawyer wouldn't have wrote this.
It is like if you ever are bored and you do want to you have like time to kill, I would recommend reading it. It is really interesting to read it like from that point of view of a legal document, like the ghost history and stuff. Again, it's full of a lot of legalese, but like it feels like it's not too bad. Like it's the Ghouls one is far more legalese. Like they're trying to like, I feel like it feels like they're trying to hide a lot of shit behind
Big
legal
words.
terms. Yeah, because like again, like regarding the commercial exploit of the brand Ghost, they were selling shirts at Ghost shows, so therefore they should get money from the merchandise because they're the show. That's not how that works.
I am all ears. The Ghost Fancast.